All right, everybody, welcome. My name is Josh. I am the fantasy football buff. And if you watched my previous video, you know we passed 50 subscribers here. So because of that, to celebrate, I purchased myself a mic, which is a huge milestone in our short career here. Guys, just wait. Hit that subscribe button, see what happens when we pass 100 subs. That's when things start getting wild. Guys, we got a good episode for you today. We're going to start by breaking down Joe Burrow's injury and what that means for Dynasty. We're going to talk a little bit about Jonathan Taylor. I'm going to take a mini victory lap. We're going to talk about that Ravens backfield. We're going to be analyzing one of my followers' Dynasty teams, give him a little bit of advice, even though his team is absolutely stacked. And then we're going to be talking about players who are trending up and trending down in Dynasty. So without further ado, guys, let's get it. All right, man. Joe Burrow, my boy. My team's name is literally Go Joe Burrow in the official pronunciation and spelling, and it broke my heart to see the play. Not necessarily a dirty play, right? But I don't think the intention was to hurt him. But as soon as I saw it happen, man, as soon as I saw his leg extended the way it was and saw the D lineman land on him and bend the way it did, I knew he wasn't coming back, man. I just knew he wasn't coming back. The reports today is that it's not just simply an ACL tear. It's also there's damage to the MCL and to other parts of the knee as well. So from a Dynasty perspective, at least for this year, we need to downgrade all fantasy weapons in Cincinnati, right? That we just can't look at, I think people are still disrespecting Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, who are both borderline wide receiver ones most of the season. I know Tyler Boyd was a wide receiver one, and T. Higgins has been a solid wide receiver two consistently all season long, and we got to downgrade him now, right? Especially with Ryan Finley under center. What are your thoughts just for at least this season moving forward with the Bengals offensive weapons?
I think you're going to see the short passing game have to get amplified, which I think, Tyler Boyd has to be the guy moving forward. But, they're still going to have to pass all the time. They have no run game. Joe Mixon is, at this point, essentially out for the season is what it seems like. It doesn't seem like he's going to be coming back this year. Giovanni Bernard's the backup, correct?
Yeah.
This is how much I haven't – this is how far away I've stayed from the Bengals backfield. I just legitimately don't even know. But I just think it's going to have to turn into a dink and dunk, but they're going to have to run the ball as well. It's going to turn into a lot of – they're going to have to get creative. I think you're going to see a lot of fly sweeps. I think you're going to see a lot of screens, different ways to get the ball moving to keep it on schedule, because now you don't really have the luxury of a nice arm to go behind. Yeah. But Ryan Finley, football IQ-wise, is better than his physical attributes, which bodes well when you have good playmakers on the outside. So I think you'll see it Cincinnati doing a lot of play action, a lot of under center, things that he's familiar with, things that he did a lot at Boise, and kind of going from there. Fantasy wise, obviously, you're going to have to knock them down because there's no way they're going to be putting up the points that you would hope that they're going to be putting up. Yeah. And I think a lot of guys are going to turn into being touchdown dependent. But it's hard for. Do you have their schedule by any means handy? Right. Because, if they play, even with Joe Burrow, if they're playing the Steelers or they're playing the Browns, even though I think they're done playing the Browns this year.
Yeah, so the rest of season schedule is Pittsburgh. No, sorry, this was that past week. It's the Giants, Miami, and Dallas. So 3 easy matchups, and then Pittsburgh, and then Houston. So the schedule moving forward isn't terrible.
Outside of that Pittsburgh game, their toughest game is Miami. But they honestly, I think Ryan Finley's going to be serviceable. Last year they had horrendous quarterback play. And I don't really think it can get much worse than that. And their receiver position is highly upgraded since last year. So I think you're just going to see a lot of creativity out of them. But obviously I think you got to knock them down. But if I have Tyler Boyd, I have T. Higgins, I'm not necessarily afraid to start them, but I hope you have, you're hoping for maybe 10, 12 points.
Yeah.
Out of both of them, and then after that, anything like that's cherry on top. If you need a boom player, the Bengals are not where you're going to be going. It's a consistent 8 to 12 points is what you're hoping for. Anything more than that is a luxury.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get a little bit of reality check here. I think people sometimes don't realize, even though he is just a rookie, how well Joe Burrow's been playing up to this point.
Exactly.
They're a top, at least top half pass offense right now, not necessarily in scoring, but yards per game. Ryan Finley did play 3 games last season because of the Andy Dalton injury. In that span, in the 3-game span, he averaged around 150 passing yards. He scored 2 touchdowns in those 3 games, and he also threw for 2 interceptions in those 3 games. So again, that's probably similar production to what he's going to be moving forward. And if he's only throwing 150 yards and a single touchdown per game, it's not necessarily something that I'm going to be excited about in fantasy. But from a dynasty perspective, looking forward, there are countless examples of players who, even quarterbacks, who have suffered ACL and MCL tears and still come back and been elite, right? This is not by any stretch of the means the end of Joe Burrow's career, at least not from my amateur perspective, right? Tom Brady, 2008, tore his ACL, right? And we all know what happened moving forward for Tom Brady. My only concern for Burrow, as the Burrow owner, is the fact that he tore his ACL in Week 11, right? This injury happened in Week 11, and the typical ACL tear recovery, from what I understand, is between 9 to 12 months, right? So in 9 months exactly from now starts the 2021 season. So that's on the early end, and that's when it's typically just an ACL tear. But his MCL and other parts of his knee are also injured. So to sit here and to be like, no, guys, he's going to be a full go by next season, that's not a lock by any stretch of the means. Am I excited for his career and his dynasty perspective? Absolutely. You could even consider him a buy low right now. If you're someone who's building for the future, in 2022, Joe Burrow will be 100% up and running with 2 years of experience now and hopefully balling out as a top 12 quarterback. But the rest of 2020 and going into 2021, it's questionable. It's questionable. What do you think? What would your projections be for his return from the ACL tear?
Well, the thing is if ACL isolated is very rare. ACL is a lot of the times paired with the MCL. I'm just curious what other structures means.
Yeah.
Is it a fracture? Is it a meniscus? Is it a PCL, which is the posterior ligament? I'm just curious what does other structures mean? But I mean, I look at a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, who is almost 4 years removed away from his injury.
Yeah.
And I mean, that had neurological issues. I mean, nerve damage and things like that. That's why his injury was so bad. So as long as he doesn't have the neurological or the blood flow issues that Teddy Bridgewater had.
Yeah.
It's tough, week 9.
Yeah.
Week 9, week 10, depending on what that meniscus looks like. And then is probably where I'm guessing. I mean, there's no way he starts the season. No. Research shows that the days of 9 to 12 month recoveries are gone. You can play maybe after 10 months, depending on how the surgery went, how your rehab's going, everything. You can play about after 10 months, but they don't consider the rehab done until 24 months. So, I mean, even going into 2022, he will still be having lingering effects from that knee. But it's different, though, because he's a quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's a running back. And it's like, oh, man, dude, without your knee, you're nothing. Or a receiver without – like, he can manage on a 10-month knee, So maybe he misses the first quarter of the season. Maybe it's closer to about week 5, week 6. I would say that's a more realistic approach at this point.
Okay, absolutely, man. We'll see. So we'll see. Again, we'll see. It's brutal. It's tough to see, especially in someone so young. And my dynasty team hates it, man. I don't know what the curse is with my dynasty quarterbacks, but for those who are watching and have been following our dynasty league at all, I have Patrick Mahomes, which thank God, dude, someone go save that man. Make sure he's safe, because my QB2 was Dak Prescott, and now my QB3 is Joe Burrow. And I came into the season so confident in my quarterbacks, and now it's not looking great and so forth. So he did tweet out, thanks for all the love. Can't get rid of me that easily, and see you next year. And that's my exact perspective for my dynasty team. With Joe Burrow going down and Drew Lock stepping up in my lineup, we'll see you guys next year. I think my contention for a playoff spot is that much tighter, especially getting wrecked this week. So,
sucks. I hate it.
Yeah.
I was banking on you making the playoffs, so I wouldn't.
Your team just keeps winning, man.
I know it's. I hate it. I hate it.
I'm shooting for that 101. I can't wait to have Trevor Lawrence on my team as well as my QB4. All right, guys. I have gotten a lot of hate recently because of my love for Jonathan Taylor. I'm kind of this Jonathan Taylor truther, self-acclaimed, of course, and I, thought he was a beast coming out of college. Was really excited about him, and I made, that video a couple weeks ago about how I still think he's a buy. And I made that video. Then the week happens where he played against Tennessee, where he barely got any snaps, barely got any carries, and my DMs were blowing up, man. We're like, wow, like this didn't age well. Where I was getting such nasty comments from people telling me how Jonathan Taylor's bust. Right, and he looked good this past weekend. Right, I was hoping for a breakout game against the Packers, but he averaged 55, or he had 55% of the snaps, 19 carries, and 4 targets. But what I'm pissed off about, but something I'm really genuinely angry about, is there were 5 different plays where there was a holding call and his play got returned. So there was 5 different plays for 47 yards and a touchdown. Right, 5 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown returned. He scored, I think it was between 14, 15 fantasy points that next season. That game, add on 11 points, and he's in the high 20 range, and that's a breakout game. That's kind of that's the ceiling and the future that I'm expecting for Jonathan Taylor, and we saw it as early as this past weekend. But those damn carries got him held back. So I wanted to make sure to point that out to everybody watching, that Jonathan, there's hope for him yet, man, because some people were leaving him for dead after the Tennessee game.
For me, my stance on rookies. I love when they have to take a back seat and just look at things from a different perspective. It's my favorite thing. It's a part of the learning process, not even in just football, but literally in anything. It's part of the learning process, just having some experience, taking a step back and looking at it, and then being like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to go about it? That's easy. And Jonathan Taylor, like we said, never doubted the ability. 4.3 40 speed at 200 plus pounds, beast. Monster. Just, dude, it is an animal. Not someone I would like to tackle.
Yeah.
Not someone I would like to even think about tackling. Could I try to tackle Tariq Cohen? You could probably convince me.
Destroy your ankles, but yeah.
Yeah, you could convince me. Am I going to try to tackle Jonathan Taylor? It's not happening. And that's no disrespect to Tariq Cohen. It's just like Jonathan Taylor it's just not happening.
Yeah.
But when things click for rookies, they're just going to click. It's inexplicable. It's not going to make sense. They're just going to click. And we saw the beginning of it. Things are just starting to click. He's starting to be able to read. His vision is taking over. The power of him just being like, oh, I just have to bang it in between the tackles and hope for 4 to 6 yards. And if I can stay on my feet, break out more. Yeah. And that's he's playing behind a top 5 offensive line in the NFL, a young top 5 offensive line in the NFL on a team that wants to run the ball. They want to run the ball. They want to run play action off of it, and they want to run quick hitting passing games. They're not a team that wants to take the top off of you like the Chiefs are with Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. They're really not. They're a dink and dunk, going to run the ball, play great defense on the other side, which is exactly what you want it for a running back like Jonathan Taylor, who first quarter, he may only be getting 2 to 4 yards a pop, but by fourth quarter, with that offensive line, the defense is like, we don't want anymore. We don't want anymore. Those 2 to 4 yard carries turn into 6 to 8 yard carries, and eventually you're going to pop one and you're going to score.
Yeah, dude, I agree, man. I totally agree.
And I think eventually you're going to start seeing Jonathan Taylor literally having Saquon-like breaking runs where he just beats everyone down the corner, down the sideline, because fourth quarter he's just that's why Derrick Henry's so good late in the season.
Yeah.
Because fourth quarter, late in the season playoffs, no one wants to tackle Derrick Henry. You're tired, you're banged up, your bodies aren't ready. And I think you see a similar thing with Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And one thing that I was just so optimistic for, just to wrap Taylor up really quickly, is the fact that he got 22 carries, right? They got 22 carries in a game that they were behind. Hines only saw 6 carries, and Jordan Wilkins only saw 4. Right, so anyone who out there who thought that Taylor really was that big of a bust and that Hines or Wilkins was going to take carries from him is absolutely just out of it. So I hope that you guys all bought and held on to Jonathan Taylor because there's a bright future ahead of him. Speaking of rookie running backs, though, J.K. Dobbins looked good this weekend, man. He looked good. He tied his season high in carries. He dominated the snaps, and he had 15 carries, and the second running back on that team only had 3. So he was given the ball, and he looked great doing it. I mean, he's breaking tackles. He looks explosive. The only concern now for fantasy owners is the fact that they might go back to a running back by committee, right? Maybe this week was a Dobbins week. He looked great out there. He has an easy schedule moving forward. But what's to stop them from putting in Gus Edwards again going into next week? I personally think Dobbins will stick.
Did you not hear what happened?
No. What happened?
Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins tested positive for COVID.
Oh,
they're out this week.
Wow.
Gus Bus is the move this week. He's the only. It'll be him and the kid from Oklahoma State. I don't remember his Justice Hill. Yeah.
So they play Thursday, right, against the Steelers.
Thursday night. Yeah. Wow. They're out this week.
That's too bad because Dobbins had some momentum. Even against that Steelers defense, had some momentum going into this week. From a dynasty perspective, I remember when Dobbins first got drafted from by the Ravens, and everyone on fantasy Twitter was saying how Dobbins is a top 5 dynasty running back. And so far this year, we haven't seen that, right? We haven't seen it. And I know it's just his rookie year, but they're using a hardcore running back by committee, right? And the concern is that they will continue to use that similar philosophy despite his talent moving forward. And then, of course, you have Lamar Jackson hawking touchdowns and carries throughout the game. What are your thoughts on this, right? What are your thoughts on this backfield? Do you think that he comes back from COVID, has the easy schedule, and then moves into the offseason as a top 5 dynasty running back, or do you still have him more top 24 range?
The thing is, the Ravens are in a position where they're out of the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
They are the 8th team in the AFC right now.
Wow.
They are the first team out of the wild card right now.
That's great.
I think they're 3rd in the AFC North. I think they're behind Cleveland, and they're way behind Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I think they have to ride the hot hand. And again, I think we're seeing the same thing with Dobbins. Things are just clicking. Things are happening. They're starting to see it. They're starting to understand it better, and they're starting to play. This is what I love. It's like it's going to sound like the cheesiest analogy, but it's the best way I can think of it. A rookie in the NFL is just like a caterpillar cocooning, and you just got to wait for that butterfly to go. And you can't really explain why it happens. It just kind of happens. But eventually they just grow and they finally just blossom, and there they are. So I honestly think the path to success for the Ravens is Dobbins heavy. I think you got to go Dobbins heavy, and you make him the number 1, and then you intermittently put Gus Bus and Mark Ingram. I think it's what you have to do because he's such an electric guy that you have to have him on the field as much as possible. Yeah. Because would they spend a 2nd round pick on him?
Yeah. There's their 2nd round.
Because at this point, imagine the kind of player they could have gotten at receiver with a 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's completely killing your offense. And it's like, all right, if we have a chance to win this year, and even if you admit at the Ravens, you're like, hey, this just isn't our year, but we need to develop, then you got to play. You got to see what you have in Gus Edwards. You got to see what you have in J.K. Dobbins. Yeah. I mean, if not, then why do you draft a guy that high? Just to sit him all season? No, this is exactly what the plan is, but they're not going to rush him along. And Mark Ingram's still going to be there, but, I mean, if you really think a high ankle injury like he had is going to be fully healed, no way. Mark Ingram's playing 85% max all the rest of the season. He's playing 85% max rest of the season. So if I'm the Ravens, I'm playing J.K. Dobbins. Do I know what the Ravens are going to do?
Yeah.
Honestly, no. But if I'm the Ravens, I'm doing J.K. Dobbins, and I'm hammering that until and you almost got to treat it like a Ronald Jones situation where it's like Ronald Jones would drop a pass, and they're going to put Fournette in. And then Fournette doesn't really do what you wanted him to do. And you're like, well, this isn't any better. And then you throw Dobbins back in there, and it's like, dude, just make a play.
Yeah.
I just think he puts the most stress on defenses. I don't think the stress is really all that big with Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards. My opinion could completely change when we see a Gus Edwards dominated backfield. Yeah. As the owner of Gus Edwards, I really don't know if I start him this week because I really don't know if I want to start him against Pittsburgh. But it's interesting. It's interesting. And I mean, they're down to two top 10 offensive linemen from last year between an injury and a retirement. So, I mean, going into next year though, J.K. Dobbins, I mean, he's got in startup dynasties. I mean, he's got to be a top 12 pick.
Oh, you think pick or just running back?
Pick.
Oh wow, interesting.
I think he's got to be a top 12, top 20 pick. I mean, there's no way you let him escape out of the top 2 rounds after going into next year if you're doing a dynasty startup.
Yeah, especially if Mark Ingram's gone. Yeah, and their O-line's healthier. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So it's interesting. I'm curious to see what happens with him. I hope he gets back on the COVID list soon and comes back to full strength because he looked good this past weekend. All right, man, let's talk. We're going to talk about Liam's dynasty team right now. He's in a unique team. We'll pull it up on the screen right now. It looks like they have 2 running backs. Looks like they start 3 different wide receivers. They do have a flex spot, a tight end spot, and then they have this unique quarterback and tight end flex spot, right, where you can start either, of course, a quarterback or a tight end exclusively. But this league is interesting because they get a half point for every completion that the quarterback's a season, right? So this totally changes the strategy for me because Liam sent me his team and I looked at the team initially. It's like, oh man, he has Jared Goff, right? He has Josh Allen and he has Gardner Minshew, which in a super flex league is not bad quarterbacks to say the least, but they're not elite, right? He has middle tier quarterbacks. But then I hear that he gets half a point per completion, and players like Minshew, players like Goff, who aren't going to necessarily be throwing for a lot of touchdowns, but need to stay in games and are like crazy when it comes to pass volume, have a lot of value. So I actually love his team. He is currently 8-2, I believe, and his starting lineup is absolutely stacked. He has Derrick Henry and Miles Sanders as running back, absolutely stacked. I don't know how he managed this, but he has Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Terry McLaurin, and Tyreek Hill as his 4 wide receivers. Those 4 are easily inside the top 4 dynasty wide receivers, in my opinion. Right? He has top 8 dynasty wide receivers. Like, his wide receiver core is absolutely stacked. And then you go to his bench, right? He has Josh Allen, Gardner Minshew at his bench, which just his starting lineup is so incredibly dirty. Then he has Melvin Gordon, David Johnson, Austin Eckler. Right? It's just his team goes on and on. And it's Jalen Reagor and Corey Davis who's blowing up. It's just I don't know how he managed this. He must have traded a lot of future picks, or his league mates just really aren't paying attention. But his team is stacked, and if I was him, I'm not doing anything. Right? If I'm him, I'm staying the course. I'm not even worrying about draft picks. I'm not worrying about players. I'm not worrying about QB. Dude, you're good, man. Just stay the course. I wish I could give any advice, but clearly, I mean, this man doesn't need it. What do you think?
There's only one position to truly upgrade, and that's tight end.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, you got Adams, you got D-Hop, you got Tyreek Hill, you have McLaurin, you got a plethora of running backs. I mean, if I'm him, I'm looking to flip either a running back or a receiver and getting a Mark Andrews, a Darren Waller, because you can. I mean, in my opinion, you can sacrifice the depth and go after it, or even giving up a Goff or something like that and going to get a dominant tight end, especially because that super flex position is tight end or QB.
Yeah.
Only, you can't play any running backs or receivers there. So, I mean, if I'm him, that's probably the only position I'm really looking to upgrade. But honestly, there's so many flipping. If you have picks this year, there's so many flipping tight ends that are coming out. I would just be aiming to get Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts out of Florida would make this team just stupid.
Yeah, man. And I guess you and I have different opinions a little bit when it comes to TJ Hawkinson.
It's not that I disagree. It's not that I don't think he's good.
Yeah.
But I just think his ceiling's always going to be so capped. I just don't think the reason you draft TJ Hawkinson in the top 15 as the Lions is not because he's a phenomenal receiver, in my opinion. It's because he can bury guys playing tight end, and he happens to be a pretty solid receiver on the other side. The reason I like Noah Fant more than Hawkinson, even though they both played on the same team at Iowa, is because Hawkinson was like the run guy. He was going to bury linebackers, when they're running inside zone, and he's got to take a linebacker one-on-one. But then you got Noah Fant, who's going to be getting the play action because they're so scared of Hawkinson coming in and burying him. That's why I like Noah Fant more in Denver than I do Hawkinson, even though Hawkinson was taken higher. So that's why I'm saying I'm not saying like Hawkinson's bad, but I mean, if you really just want to blow this league, and this is nitpicking, but if you want to completely blow this league out of the water, you just get a dominant tight end like a Darren Waller, a Mark Andrews, something of that nature, or draft another rookie in Kyle Pitts. And you'll just see your team will literally never lose. You will be 10-0. You'll be 16, 15-0, whatever it is, every single year. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. That is technically, comparatively one of the weaker points. And a real quick TJ Hawkinson shout out. The man is the tight end 4 right now in PPR leagues. And in 7 out of his 10 games so far, he has double-digit points. But he doesn't have any explosive games, but most tight ends don't, right? Unless you're
Travis Kelce,
Travis Kelce. Yeah, so and I understand definitely flipping one of his guys just because of the depth he has, and because they have 2 potential quarterback or tight end spots. I agree with you that a little bit of depth.
Yeah, I mean, right now especially if George Kittle doesn't play a whole lot the rest of the season, going into the offseason, his value is never going to be lower. Yeah. I mean, why? If you have this team, why wouldn't you try to go after it? You can sacrifice the receiver depth or the picks and go get it. I mean, who knows? And
I just saw this on the very bottom of his bench. He has Zach Ertz on injury reserve. So
there we go. That was the piece that he had that just kind of dwindled this year.
Yeah, and I don't know. My feelings are mixed. Right, I like Hawkinson, and if Ertz lands somewhere and they pay him and actually involve him in the offense, maybe there's a little hope. But again, dude, why not add Kittle to your team if you can? You can sacrifice one of your top tier wide receivers or something like that, and then just make this team just absolutely insane. Awesome, man. That being said, Liam, your team is absolutely stacked, and I hope you kill it this season because, we're nitpicking here. There's not much else I can offer. Dude, all right, let's move into Dynasty Trends Tuesday, a.k.a. Trendtastic Tuesday, whatever y'all want to call it. Do you want to kick us off? Start with who your first trending up player is in Dynasty? Oh,
yeah, sure. Former Navy quarterback. On Sleeper, he's listed as a quarterback, a receiver, and a running back. His name is Malcolm Perry. I just picked him up off the waiver, and I started him this week, actually, because my only 2 quarterbacks in a 2-quarterback dynasty league are Kyler Murray and Teddy Bridgewater. Outside of that, and Teddy Bridgewater didn't play this week, and I was like, well, dude, I need a quarterback. Malcolm Perry was on the waiver. I was like, his snaps have gone up over the past couple weeks. Let's roll the dice.
Full discretion. I've never heard of this man's name before in my life.
That's what my brother said. Malcolm Perry, he's 5'9", 190. He played quarterback at Navy, and I don't know if you know Navy football, but they run the triple option. They don't throw the ball, they run the ball. So did he really play quarterback? No, he just played glorified running back with a brain, just had to make the decisions. But over the past he didn't play for the first 7 weeks. And he was just like a healthy scratch, learning the offense, learning how to play receiver. Week 8 played 14% of snaps. Week 9 played 36% of snaps. Week 10 played 39% of snaps. Then Preston Williams goes down. So there are targets to be had.
Yeah.
This last week, week 11, played 79% of snaps.
Yeah, 5 targets.
Had 5 targets, ended up with 5.3 points in PPR. And his yards per catch, when he actually catches the ball, are 10, 10.5, and 7.7. But he's a dude that's going to get the ball, and he can make people miss. I mean, if you're looking for a deep dive sleeper guy that can literally play every position except for tight end, I mean, this is one of my favorite picks. I've been watching him. He was like a 6th round pick, but he's going to end up playing. He's going to end up playing the slot. He's better than most people think. If you want to get super excited about this guy, go on YouTube, look up Malcolm Perry Navy, and you'll literally just watch this dude making people look like fools. I mean, I'm gonna pull it up real quick and just tell you Navy football 2019. 2019, they went 11-2. Navy is not good at football this year. They lost Malcolm Perry, and they are not good at football. I'm going to see if I can pull up what he did in college, because it was disgusting. But that is my guy. Like I just and I was super. Nino, my brother was trying to tell me, oh, start Jake Luton over him, and I was like, dude, Jake Luton's playing the flipping Steelers. I go, he's not going to do anything. All right, in 2019, his senior year, he ran for 2,000 yards, averaged 6.8 yards per carry, had 21 touchdowns, and that was his senior year.
Oh my gosh. Is this rushing or passing?
This was rushing.
Oh
passing, let me tell you what he did. Passing, he only threw 86 passes, threw for 1,000 yards, had 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I mean, he only turned the ball over 4 times. And this is my last little nugget. Do you know who Jerome Baker is?
The name sounds really familiar.
He is, I want to say he's a linebacker. He is a linebacker for the Dolphins, Jerome Baker. He said last week, Malcolm Perry is the hardest guy on the team to tackle.
Huh. Wow. Interesting, dude. That's fascinating. What's really funny is that Perry did have more points than Luton did at the end of the game. And you know again, this is awesome because this is a player I've never heard of before, who's apparently balling out, and you can start him in literally any position. Right, you pick him right now up sleeper. He's definitely on your dynasty waiver wire, I guarantee. And this man will play running back, wide receiver, or quarterback for wherever you need him. I mean, he'll probably only get between 5 to 10-ish points, but in this year, like, man, we'll take it. With
Dude, touchdown. He's a touchdown-dependent guy, but I mean, he is so flipping fast. I mean, there are not many players in the NFL that can reverse field and actually make it happen. Who's one that Tyreek Hill can reverse field and make it happen? I haven't looked this up. I'm really curious now that we're talking about it. I'm curious what his combine or what his Malcolm Perry 40 time. He ranked top of the receiver he only ran a 4.65, but this dude is so quick. He was the top receiver in 3-cone drill and 20-yard shuttle. Wow. So he was the quickest receiver in the NFL draft this year. So not elite top end speed, but man, he's going to be tough to tackle because I mean, boom, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy agile. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
My guy. That's my guy. There we go.
I like it. That is awesome. All right, I'll go into my trending player now. Not nearly as deep as yours is. Mine might be a little chalky comparatively. But trending up for me, it's got to be Justin Jefferson. It just has to be up at this point. I mean, the kid's 21 years old. He was drafted 22nd overall in the 2020 draft. And he has, out of his the 9 games that I looked at, I guess in 10 games now, 5 of them have been in the single-digit PPR points, right? So he's been slightly inconsistent. And the reality is he's only averaging 3.8 targets per game. And when you're playing behind Adam Thielen on a run-first team, that's just going to happen. Right, but when he's seeing targets, he's had elite games, right? When he's averaged at least, or he has had 3 elite games where he scored 30, 39, and 21 fantasy points. And in those games, he averaged 10 targets a game. So as soon as he saw targets, he balled out. And I feel just the reality that he's seeing so many limited targets, or so few targets, I should say, is really shrouding how good Justin Jefferson is. Right now, he's 47th in the league in targets as of week 10, so this past week. 47th in targets. He is 7th in the league in receiving yards, right? So he is barely seeing any targets and still killing it in the receiving yard game. He is 7th amongst wide receivers in yards after the catch. He is 9 in yards per reception. He is 1st in the league right now in yards per target, which makes sense, right? He's being insanely efficient. He's 1st right now in the league in yards per route run, And naturally, because of this, he is 4th in the league in points per target, right? So when he gets the volume, when he gets the looks, he is balling out with it. And you could argue maybe it's because of the efficiency side, the defense, focusing on Thielen, focusing on Dalvin Cook. Go watch some highlights. He's the real deal, and he's only 21 years old. He is a top. Right now, he's ranked 8th by Fantasy Pros in Dynasty. And I've had some pages, I've listened to some podcasts who rank him as high as top 5. Now, I'm not ready to put him top 5, but he's definitely trending upwards, right? He looks great. And I need your help, man. I need your help ranking him because I don't know where to put him right now in my ranks, right? So if you had to compare Justin Jefferson, right, 21 years old, looking great, has a bright future ahead of him, against a Chris Godwin, right? Chris Godwin, who is incredibly talented, right? Who broke out last season, but is playing in Tampa Bay, where all of a sudden there's a lot of mouths to feed. He's clearly significantly older than Justin Jefferson, and I mean, Brady's not the future in Tampa Bay. You know this, right? So we don't really know what the future quarterback looks like. If you were in a startup league right now, who would you draft first, Godwin or Jefferson?
I'd probably take Godwin.
Okay.
Just based off of experience, and we could be seeing Chris Godwin on a new team next year.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, what about Justin Jefferson and my guy, Terry McLaurin?
I knew this question was coming. I think I still I got to take Justin Jefferson just because I hate the Washington football team.
Okay, man. And then the final question, and this one's really going to dig deep at you here. Who would you take, Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb in a startup draft right now?
I think just because of the lack of mouths to feed, only really Adam Thielen, I think you have to take Jefferson.
Yeah.
But personally, I'm taking CeeDee Lamb because Justin Jefferson's awesome, but I can only imagine what CeeDee Lamb would be doing if he got drafted by any other team.
Yeah. Or just look how good he was when Dak was under center. And
he looked fantastic on Sunday.
Yeah.
Punt returning. He that touchdown was.
Woo, that touchdown, man, in the end zone. I'll put up the clip because it was insane, dude. I was watching it. I lost it. I absolutely lost it. So for me, that's the tier Justin Jefferson is in, right? He's amongst these. He's right there. Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb. They're all pretty much interchangeable. Justin Jefferson, he's just so young and looks so good. So definitely someone I'm trending up. And Zach, if you're watching this, I probably shouldn't have said anything because I'm going to be making trade offers this offseason to get Justin Jefferson. And now I'll probably never get him, but I'm going to try because I would love
it. Zach arguably has two of the best. He has DK Metcalf. Got DK Metcalf, steal value. Got Justin Jefferson, steal value right afterwards.
In like the 6th, 7th round, wasn't it? It was late.
Yeah.
Like the 5th,
yeah. It was pretty late. And I took CeeDee Lamb in the 3rd. Or 4th, I should say, beginning of the middle of the 4th. So, and that's the thing. We're about to be moving into a new era of NFL receivers, and this young blood is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's insane, man. And the class, the 2020 class that came in, is crazy. The class before that with DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin, they're balling out. And then you look into this upcoming class, it's insane. Like, these wide receivers are so incredibly talented. I am so excited.
Like I said before, you're seeing the era of 7-on-7 football, spread offense football in middle school and high schools finally reaching the pros. Yeah. These guys are just equipped to be playing in a passing league. It's fantastic. I love it. For fantasy purposes, it's fantastic. It's tremendous. The quality of passing between DBs and receivers is finally catching up to the less than fun rules that have been placed on them. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Who is your second trending up player? I'm starting to realize I like the deeper dive guys. The other guys seem like too easy cherry pickings. So I'm going to stick with it. Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
A guy I really like right now. I think it's a great time to be a Jalen Hurts owner.
Is this because Wentz looks terrible, or what are you thinking?
I know they have a contract committed to Wentz, but at this point, I really don't think – I think the only way the Eagles and Doug Peterson and that whole organization keeps their job is if they make the playoffs and win a playoff game. I could truly see them making the playoffs and still losing and all that staff getting fired. Because that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's easier said than done when I don't know these people and I have no personal relationships with them, and I'm like, oh yeah, just can them.
And Doug Peterson won them a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, so. Like it's a quick thing to just be like, gone. But I like Jalen Hurts because this offense needs something, and the best player on a dying offense, or the fan favorite on a dying offense, is the backup quarterback. You just spent. They spent a second round pick on him.
Yep.
Spent a second round pick on him, and he doesn't see the field. There's no reason. You're not telling me that the Eagles aren't like, we may have made a mistake getting Wentz on this contract. And I don't understand his contract, but from what I was reading is next year you have to pay him. He has like $38 million on the books that you just cannot afford to eat. And you just can't afford to eat it. But after that, it looked like there was like a team option period where the team has an option to whether accept or decline the next 2 years on his contract. And it looks like that they can decline it. Which at me, at that point, I'm kind of just letting it be like at some point you got to see what Jalen Hurts can do. And because regardless how you felt about his turnovers at Oklahoma, his turnovers at Alabama, he's played at high level football.
Yeah.
He's done it at 2 different schools. You spent a second round draft pick on him. At some point, you're going to have to see what he has to do. And I actually, more than anything, I just like the mindset of Jalen Hurts. He's a very easy guy to root for. He may not be your most favorite prospect in terms of like, oh, he's not Trevor Lawrence or Peyton Manning or, we can't, but he is a good football player, man. And he's got wheels. I think he works well with the rest of what that offense is trying to do. I think his game transitions very nicely to the personnel that the Eagles have. They got a good running back. They have Jalen Reagor, I think is fantastic on that team. It should be their bubble screen, quick slant type of guy. You got Fulgham on the outsides, and you got Goddard in the middle. I mean, they may even need to add another piece, but I'm so tired of seeing the Eagles go make lateral moves every year by drafting a backup quarterback and then drafting receivers that don't play and don't make plays. So I'm ready to see them make an investment, maybe in their defense, maybe in their secondary, maybe at their linebacking position, But they gave up Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins now plays for the Saints, and now the Saints have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And so I'm ready to see, as Trey is, as every Eagle fan is, they're ready to see. And it's frustrating when you watch. I mean, yesterday he had a couple drops, but it's frustrating when you watch Aguilar get on a legitimate offense. And he has his drops, but he's still making so many plays.
He looked good. Yeah, he looked really good. Yeah.
Had a couple key drops that really were like, you're still you. But I love Aguilar. But, I mean, he looked terrible in Philly. But at some point, something's got to give. I think you got to give Hurts. Who they play this week? That's my question.
This upcoming week?
Yeah. Who do the Eagles play?
They play Seattle.
Okay, they're going to get the socks beat off of them. But also, here's another thing. Seattle sucks at defending the pass. If you play Seattle, you're starting – I have to start Goddard. I have Goddard and Fulgham. I'm starting both of them. I have to.
Yeah, their pass defense miserable. Dude, listen to this. They got Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona moving forward. So
they legitimately could go 0-4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that would literally kick Dallas to – winning the division, which is absurd.
If Dallas makes the playoffs, man, I'm just gonna lose it. That division's a joke. That whole division's a joke.
Blows my mind. So, but what I'm saying is, if Wentz can't do it against Seattle this upcoming week, I think at some point you got to give the keys to Hurts and just be like, let's see what you got, because that could, if they lose this week or he comes in the second half or whatnot, that could be the difference between them going 0-4 and them going maybe 2-2, or them going 1-3, and because the NFC East, it's the first one to win 7 games.
Yeah.
Whoever wins 7 games is making the playoffs. That's what it comes down to at this point.
Yeah.
And so I go, you can't afford to lose 4 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
So I like Jalen Hurts. In a dynasty format, I would be buying. If we had our trade deadline, I'd be buying Jalen Hurts right now.
Interesting. So Jalen Hurts, as we all know, I mean, he's fast, man. He is fast. He was in the 95th percentile in 40-yard dash, 91st in burst score. So, I mean, he's incredibly quick. And, again, they drafted him in the second round. And I'll put up Wentz's contract on the screen for everybody. They have to pay him in 2021. And then in big, bold letters under the 2021, it says potential out 2022. And it breaks down that whole end. So I would not blame them if they give Hurts a chance, right? Because Wentz, you want to blame it on injuries. He just has, and I said this the other day in the video, I'm just sick of making excuses for Wentz. Right? I'm tired of making excuses. He had that little 8-9 game window where he was MVP caliber, looked amazing, got hurt, has not been the same person. He didn't win a Super Bowl, right? It was Nick Foles. Nick Foles got them to the playoffs, right? He's just not the answer. And I think the Eagles and all Eagles fans are probably facing that reality right now. So we'll see, man. I like it. I like the call a lot.
I mean, put it this way.
Yeah.
If Jameis was on the Eagles, I think that team would be a 5 to 6 win team right now.
Interesting.
Because Jameis can at least get the ball to receivers. He may turn the ball over.
Yeah.
But he's gonna at least get the ball to the playmakers, and they're gonna have a chance to make a play. Yeah. And so it's like Wentz. It's like he's just legitimate. Travis Fulgham had 7 targets yesterday and caught 1 of them.
It's so bad, man. That is so bad. Yeah, no, it is. It's brutal. It is brutal. So hopefully, I like it. It's a great buy-in in Dynasty. He's trending up, right? They spent a second-round pick on him, so he's got to be trending up. Oh, great. My second and final guy here for trending up is another deeper play, right? Another deep play, and his name is Denzel Mims, wide receiver for the New York Jets. Now, we need to talk about Denzel Mims for a little bit. He is currently on my tactics squad. I need to take him off because he might be in my starting lineup. I might start him next weekend over Hollywood Brown because I am going to drop Hollywood Brown if I have to put him in my startup lineup again. Mims was drafted by the Jets in the second round. He was their second pick, and he got injured in the preseason, and I believe people forgot about him. Right? I really do think that the Dynasty community has forgotten about Denzel Mims because of how great of a prospect he was. He comes to the combine. Do you know how well he did in the 20-yard dash? Do you know off the top of your head?
I mean, I know he was top 5 best, if not the best.
Dude, he ran a 4.38. Right? That's the 96th percentile. Let me pull up. And he's a big dude, right? I think he's 6'3", something along those lines. He's a big dude and he's fast, right? He's a legit wide receiver 1 build. Speed score, 96th percentile. Burst score, 90th percentile. Catch radius, 95th percentile, right? He is just blew it up at the combine, an excellent prospect. And ever since he returned in week 7 from injury, he's averaging 90% of the snaps. They weren't like, oh, he's a rookie, we're going to ease him in. No, they're like, bro, we need somebody in our lineup. They had, what's his name, in the as their head wide receiver, that short.
Jamison Crowder?
No, it wasn't Jamison Crowder. He was from the Patriots.
Oh, Braxton Berrios?
No, it wasn't even Braxton Berrios. He played for the Patriots. He played lacrosse in college. I can't remember his name. I'll put it on the screen as soon as I remember because he was this short white dude who had a couple good playoff games with the Patriots.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what I'm talking about, but I can't think of his name. Anyways, they let him right into the lineup, and since he started playing, right, over the past couple weeks, he has a 28% dominator rating from Player Profiler. And what that means, it's the percentage of receiving yards and receiving touchdowns a wide receiver has on their team. So how involved are you, not just in targets, but what you're actually doing with the ball? And he's almost 30%, right? He's almost 30% of that offense already, right, with Joe Flacco under center. He is, in my opinion, because of his age and because of his ability and skill and size, he is the wide receiver 1 on that team moving forward, just because, who else is there? Rashad Perriman is significantly older and never really produced in the NFL. Jamison Crowder is another one who's not trending up, to say the least. And so this is the way I see it, right? If the way things stand right now, right, and people don't want Jets players on their fantasy team. So the way things stand right now with Adam Gase as quarterback. And with Joe Flacco or Sam Darnold under center, I think he's a wide receiver 3. Right, he has been. He's been a borderline flex play, borderline wide receiver 3, just because of the targets and how well he's doing with the ball down the field. He is currently ranked in the mid to late 40s on Fantasy Pros on their Dynasty rankings. And I think that 40 to 45 ranking is not taking into consideration his career upside. Right? Everyone's looking at the Jets as they're terrible. They're looking at Adam Gase, who is terrible, and look at the quarterback situation there, which is horrible. Right, but let's look at 2021. Let's look at 2022. Right? How many games until Gase gets fired? Right? If they go 0-16, there's no way that Gase is still the quarterback of that team. At least we think. Right? We think Gase has to be gone. And if they are 0-16, they're very likely to bring in Trevor Lawrence. Right now, we don't know. We can't predict that for sure. We can't say that this fantasy scenario is going to work out. But if Gase is gone and Trevor Lawrence is under center, and Denzel Mims, who I just talked about how quick he is, how big he is, how he's going to be just a target hog and then dominate with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's going to blow up, man. He has, at that point, at least top 15 upside, right, in 2-3 years from now. And I think that top 15 upside isn't being taken into consideration on his current ranking. Right now, or just the other day, I put out a post about Michael Pittman Jr., your guy, and I put up a follow story on my Instagram asking people who they would rather take in Dynasty. And it was crazy. It was like 85% said they'd rather take Pittman, right? And I think that's a little bit of recency bias and the fact that Pittman's performing right now. Because in my eyes, I think they're a lot closer tier than what some people might think, right? I think they're much closer because of the potential upside he has, because of Mims' his ability, they're much closer. And so I went through the Dynasty rankings on Fantasy Pros, and I still believe Mims is being disrespected, right? I personally, because of his upside, because of his age, because of how good he is, and his potential career path, I would take him over Christian Kirk, right? I would take him over Brandon Cooks. I would take him over Michael Gallup, and then I put him in that and slightly above that tier of Laviska Shenault and Brandon Ayuk, right? Where all these guys are this rookie class that came in that's incredibly talented. All of them are in questionable positions currently, right? Whether they're injured or their team is just struggling right now. And I think Mims is not only in that tier, but trending up and could be over that tier. So that's my deep dive guy for the day is Denzel Mims, man. What do you think? What are your how would you compare Mims versus Pittman?
I mean, I'm taking Pittman.
Yeah. No, I know you are.
All day, twice on Sundays. But that's just how I feel about Pittman. The thing is, for Mims, for me, I'm in a wait and see mode, because I gotta see what the Jets are gonna do. Mm-hmm. Like, if Adam Gase is their head coach again next year, my mind will be. I mean, he's gonna put up PPR. I mean, that team's gonna have to throw. It's just gonna have to throw. They got their left tackle. They may or may not have their quarterback. I mean, if they truly believe in Sam Darnold, you could see. There's no way. I don't know what they're gonna do. I legitimately don't know. So I'm taking Pittman just because I like the trajectory of the Colts team. Yeah. That's like a similar reason why I would take Justin Jefferson over McLaurin in a redraft, because I like the trajectory of the team more.
Interesting. Yeah.
Now, do I think McLaurin is a better player than Jefferson? Yes. Do I think Mims is a better player than Pittman? No. But I do think Mims has the upside, and he is getting slept on. I think that's a great trending up player. Because I did watch him. He made some catches. I was like, damn, that was a nice snag. That was a nice snag.
Yeah. This is my quick perspective on Mims. Right now, coming into the season, he was a penny stock. Right? He was a penny stock with a lot of potential.
At least in comparison to a bunch of the other receivers he got drafted with.
Yeah, he's currently ranked 45th amongst Dynasty wide receivers. So his value is low, man. And the reason he's trending up is just because of his involvement currently, how much he's on the field, the targets he's seeing, and what he's doing with them. Right? That's why, in my opinion, even with terrible quarterback play, he's trending up. I'm not saying there's any kind of guarantee. I'm not telling you anybody right now that he's going to be a top 15 guy. That's why I personally would probably take Pittman as well over him. But I think their tier difference isn't that far apart. because of the potential upside and what he's doing now. That's just, he's a penny stock, right? And I'm buying in right now while he's still only, 80 cents a share before he takes off, or he could.
Yeah, I do love those penny stocks.
Dude, me too, man. I've lost a lot of money in penny stocks, so hopefully Mims isn't one of them. All right, man, let's go. Let's transition to players who are trending down. I've got a couple top-tier guys, actually, that I have trending down. But you go kick us off, man. I want to hear who your number one trending down guy is.
My number one trending down guy? I've had a hard time coming up with one, if I'm being honest.
Interesting.
Just because I think the season's in a complete, like, that's what I've been doing over the past 15 minutes, is trying to find, like, who do I really not like moving forward. I'm gonna stick with my Aaron Jones. I will hammer that in, because I don't think he's gonna get re-signed. I don't think he's gonna be worth it next year. I think he's a guy that you should have sold high when you had the chance. Trending down though, man, I'm curious to see who you got.
Okay. Yeah. To speak to Aaron Jones, I mean, the story of his life, right? Last weekend, put up 17 fantasy points because he scored a touchdown, right? He did see 4 targets, which is impressive, but he was only playing on 51% of the snaps and only got 10 carries, right? So if you were able, before your trade deadline, to flip him for a younger or higher tier running back, because he was the RB2 in fantasy throughout the first stretch of the season, then I completely understand what you're talking about. And I'm going to talk about another former top tier running back, and this one breaks my heart a little bit, because on my page, when I was focusing exclusively on redraft, he was one of my guys, and that's Joe Mixon. It's Joe Mixon, and he's trending down right now from a dynasty perspective. I'm looking at from the beginning of this past offseason when we did our startup draft. He was the RB6 taken off the board. And he was the RB6 because he was only 24 years old, because he was about to sign a huge contract. Joe Burrow's coming in, turn around the offense, and he's just an excellent talent, right? That's why he was the 6th running back taken off the board. I still think he's one of the most talented running backs in the league. Weeks 1 through 6, he was a top 9. He was the running back 9 in fantasy, and that is a little bit skewed. He did see a 42-point fantasy game against the Jacksonville Jaguars that really carried his team up to that, because he was like in the 30s prior to that game. And one thing, I'll put this up on the screen as well, but he was trending in the right direction, right? He got injured, I believe it was in week 6, but prior to that, he was moving in the right direction, right? At the start of the season, he started off not being that involved as I would have liked him to see, being one of my guys, but all of a sudden he was starting to see more snaps, he was starting to see more carries, he started to see more targets, right? He was moving back into that offense and being a legit low-end wide receiver 1, the wide receiver 1 I thought I was drafting in redraft. Week 6 was weird, man. He scores a touchdown, and he gets pushed under the pile, and he immediately scores a touchdown, jumps up, and is dancing, man. He's excited. He just scored a touchdown. He leaves the game. After that play, he doesn't see the field again for the next couple of plays. He leaves the game for a foot injury, comes back in that same game to end the game. Everything seems fine, and then going into the following week, it gets reported that he has a minor foot injury, but incredibly vague. And then every week up to this point, it's been, oh no, he's just nursing a minor foot injury. He was seen dancing on the sideline, so he'll be back in there, and hasn't been. So he wasn't performing the way we would have hoped, right? Even though he was trending in the right direction, wasn't performing the way he hoped. Joe Burrow's out for the season, and like we talked about, will be out going into next season, so that offense is going to struggle, right? It's not going to be the same offense that we expect, even though, I know that Joe Mixon was he performed even despite struggling in the struggling offense last season, right? He was still a decent fantasy running back, but he wasn't living up to that starting the season. He was barely trending that direction. Who knows if he's going to play the rest of the season? He just got put on IR, right? So he's eligible to return in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but when he does, what is that offense going to look like? And should the Bengals even play him, right? If they're losing, if they don't have Joe Burrow, they just paid all this money for a running back, and they're really concerned about his foot, dude, if I'm the Bengals, I'm just having him sit out. So you're taking away 2020 as a year. And one of the main reasons Joe Mixon was a top 6 running back was because everyone was expecting him to ball out in 2020. Right now that value's gone, he's going to be 25 moving into next year. That offense will most likely struggle as Joe Burrow returns to get back. I just don't see it, right? He's not performing now. He's like Leonard Fournette last week, right? He's not performing right now, and I don't see a lot of optimism down the road. He could continue to trend up a little bit, but it's hard for me to see that moving forward. So because of that, man, he was a low end, running back one. Even if Joe Burrow comes back fully healthy, he's gonna be a low end, high end running back two, low end running back one going into 2021. But after that, I don't see too much value in him moving forward. And because of that, I mean, I'm taking Swift, right? He went from a top 6 Dynasty running back to maybe top 15, where I'm taking Swift, I'm taking Dobbins, I'm definitely taking CEH and Taylor, I'm taking Nick Chubb, I'll take Miles Sanders, I'll take that whole group of guys over him, and that just pushes him farther and farther down. So definitely someone, especially with this Joe, I had his name written down before Joe Burrow got hurt. So he is a player that is just
like slamming it home. Yeah,
who's just training down even farther for me.
Yeah, Joe Mixon's a disappointing one.
Yeah.
I really anticipated the Bengals offensive line to bounce back a little bit more.
Yeah.
Especially with the return of Jonah Williams, but they just have not been able to. I mean, injuries in Cincinnati have been just Joe Burrow. You can't do anything about that. That is what it is. But as a whole, injuries in Cincinnati have been gruesome. I mean, even just look at how the AJ Green thing has been dealt with over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Not even just like this year or last year. Literally over the past 5 years, it's just been it's been a mess. No, Joe Mixon's disappointing. He was a stud coming out of Oklahoma. Played on the same team as Andrews and a bunch of those guys, and played well. And when he plays, he's fun. He almost looks like he has a very similar running style to Adrian Peterson. Just in not necessarily. I'm not saying he's Adrian Peterson level, but just in terms of like sheer force and what he's going to be bringing to the punch. He's just very, and it kind of shows because he doesn't get a lot of third down work even when he is playing, which Adrian Peterson is also not going to. So I don't know. It just kind of seemed both came from Oklahoma. That's just kind of ironic, But I can agree. It's frustrating for Joe Mixon. Did he end up signing that contract? Did he get an extension?
Yeah, no. So he signed a 4-year contract with him, and it's a pretty big.
And that's really the only thing that you're really holding your hat on right now is that contract. You can't just swallow that money. But also at the same point, and this is a guy that it seems like low-hanging fruit, but I'll throw it out there like Todd Gurley, had that huge contract and just went down and just has not been able to recover. I think he's another guy that we can throw into this category, and that's probably who I would have led off with.
Yeah.
Is another guy like Todd Gurley. He's not the future of Atlanta running back. He doesn't – I mean – not that Dirk Cutter, the offensive coordinator for the Falcons, knows how to use a running back to save his life, but it's not. I'm just not. I wasn't a fan of Todd Gurley going into the season. He had a couple nice weeks, but again, really touchdown dependent for me.
Very
and I think Joe Mixon and him are kind of in that same category right now. Joe Mixon has a little more upside because he's younger and has a contract to him.
Yeah.
But no, Joe Mixon's frustrating, and it's I'm curious to see how it ends up playing out and see if he is going to play at all this year. But I don't know why you would even play him.
Yeah.
I'd rather just keep repping young guys, build depth, get experience underneath, because it's not like you're buying for a playoff spot, and it doesn't sound like he's going to be healthy at all this season.
Yeah. Yeah. And, man, again, I think Todd Gurley is an excellent example. Who's 26 years old on that 1-year contract, so his future is not guaranteed by any stretch of the means. And he's been not only incredibly touchdown dependent, like you said, he's a top 12 running back currently, but he has 9 touchdowns on the season. I think that's at least top 3, if not top 5-ish range in touchdowns. They played the Saints this past weekend, who was honestly, if you look at their schedule, was probably they've had a cake schedule up to this point for running backs. So if you look, they played the Saints, finally a real tough defense, and he only had 8 carries because they were getting blown out, and he ran for 26 yards. All right, so if he's not getting the touchdowns, then he's not really incredibly valuable to your team. And you and I talked about this when we did our midseason review about Todd Gurley, right? He's not the future there. He's not the future. How many, off the top of your head, how many more years does Todd Gurley have, or he's at least a wide receiver 2 or a running back 2 in fantasy?
0.
You think next year he's just done? And I agree with you, man. I agree with you, dude. I definitely a guy who I don't see the future there. not in Atlanta.
I see him being a guy that Seattle signs and just kind of putts around. You know.
Yeah.
It's a type of back that Seattle would sign. Be like, yeah, we'll throw you in our collection of running backs that we don't know how to use.
That's the Seattle way, man. That's the perfect. Well, okay, I'm going to move to my last guy to wrap everything up here. And this is a guy I'm ready to get a little bit of hate on, right? I'm ready to receive a little bit of hate from the population on my trending down player. And that is none other than the slant boy himself, Michael Thomas.
Dude, I almost threw that out. I almost threw that out there. I totally agree. In terms of what his value, I mean, I'm sorry for stealing your thunder, but in terms of what his value is versus what you're going to be getting from him, it's not there.
Yeah, so Michael Thomas is a player that I highly criticized going into the 2019 season, which in hindsight clearly didn't look great, right? He was the undisputed wide receiver one, broke the reception record like he looked amazing. So I have a terrible track record when it comes to criticizing Michael Thomas. He probably hates me. He's going to block me for sure after this one, as he does with most people, if not getting into Twitter fights with me. There was natural target regression coming for him. Right, unless he was going to break his own reception record, it just wasn't going to happen. And the reason I needed to bring him up was because he was the undisputed Dynasty wide receiver one in our draft, right? If take me back to last May and I'm in Nick Kaludis' spot and I'm at the beginning of the draft and I'm looking for a wide receiver, I'm taking Michael Thomas, right? You just had to. He came off such a strong season. You know, Drew Brees looked like he was going to have another strong year. And then Jameis Winston hopefully was going to be the future for him. And he was the undisputed wide receiver one. And the reality is, man, he's 27 years old, and I currently think that this is his prime, right? If you want to compare NFL players to stocks, I think his 2019 season was the peak of his value. I don't think he's ever going to be as good as he was for fantasy purposes as he was in 2019. And because there's still 4 years in that massive contract he signed. But you and I can talk about this a little bit because I know you're a Taysom Hill guy. But the future of that quarterback room is uncertain to me. I would be surprised. I would be really surprised if Drew Brees is playing football next season. I'd be surprised, especially with his 11 broken ribs right now, right? And then again, the Saints insist that Taysom Hill's their backup quarterback. And he didn't look terrible, right? He didn't look terrible this past weekend, but he also played the Falcons defense. And you put me in pads, and I'll go throw a couple touchdowns against the Falcons defense, right, man? Like, they are by far the worst defense in the league. And Michael Thomas did see a lot of targets, so that's good with Taysom Hill under center. I'm just saying he's trending down. I think he peaked in 2019, and I think he's still top 5, right? I'll give him top 8 Dynasty wide receiver, absolutely. But, I mean, I'll give you a little peek into my personal rankings. I currently have DK Metcalf as my Dynasty wide receiver one, right? And the reason I have DK Metcalf over Michael Thomas, he has a better quarterback future, right? Russell Wilson's better now than Brees is, right? Metcalf is currently doing better than Michael Thomas is. He's way younger, right? There's such a brighter future for Metcalf. He's my Dynasty wide receiver one. Second, I have Tyreek Hill, right? Which is a little bit of a controversial wide receiver two in Dynasty. But he's looking great this season, and tied to Patrick Mahomes' offense. He's only 26, 27 years old. He's still got plenty of years left as a wide receiver. Then you got A.J. Brown is next for me, and it's just a combination of what A.J. Brown's been able to do this season and how he looks with Tannehill despite still seeing limited targets. Dude, his play yesterday is what cemented him in that top 3, where he had 5 defenders on him for the game, just tearing people off. He's just such a beast, man. So that's why I have him over Michael Thomas. And then I have Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, all in the tier. And dude, I'm not some crazy expert, right? You could make the argument to put Adams, Hopkins, or Michael Thomas in between any of these players, right? But from my perspective, the way I approach Dynasty, of me looking for younger players, looking for players that are going to have the next 5 to 10 years of career ahead of them, that's why I have that kind of group of former elite wide receiver ones. There still are elite wide receiver ones, but just they're not going to be balling the way Metcalf will be in 5 years from now. So that's my rant. That's my perspective on Michael Thomas. I'm not saying to go drop him. I'm not saying he's not elite still. I'm just saying that there's a questionable quarterback situation. He's not going to break the NFL record in receptions every single year. And he's more of a a middle to low end wide receiver 1 in Dynasty for me moving forward.
I think the best way I could put how I feel about Michael Thomas is
Yeah.
I'm not spending in a redraft dynasty. I'm not spending a first round pick on him. But if I got to spend a second round pick on him, I would be ecstatic.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Like I much rather have, like you said, a DK Metcalf, and then I come around to the second pick and I'm picking 16 overall and I get to pick Michael Thomas. Yeah, but that's not the reality of it right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe it would be right now if you did a dynasty restart up right now. You might be able to get Michael Thomas that late.
Yeah.
But, come off season, I would be like, oh, Michael Thomas is so awesome. He was hurt all last year. It's like, okay, and he goes top 8 again, which warranted. But I mean, imagine if you could be picking imagine if you could have the 7th pick in a 10-team draft, and let's say you get Tyreek Hill to fall to you because a bunch of running backs and maybe a quarterback went ahead of him, and then you come back and you're picking 13, 14, and you get Michael Thomas right there. It's like, wow, that's fantastic. But Michael Thomas as the number 1 guy, it's hampered Nick Kaludis' team because of it.
Yeah.
Like him and I both lost our first round picks, essentially, is how I look at it.
Yeah,
and, I lost Saquon, he lost his. So at that point, it's like, all right, well, how's the rest of your team looking? How's that going to go? And so, when you lose Michael Thomas, when you lose your first round pick, it's just tough to win games.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at. If I can get Michael Thomas in the second round of a dynasty, we're not saying Michael Thomas is not going to produce. We're not saying that Michael Thomas is not going to be good and that he's not worth having a roster spot or not worth taking in the top 10. I'm just saying there are other players I'd rather take in the top 10 of a dynasty startup, and I would be ecstatic to have him in the second round. But I'm kind of like, if I have to take him in the first.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I feel
best way I can put it.
That's you said it perfectly, right? So again, he's perfect for this segment, just trending down. He peaked, and not to say that there still won't be, mountains that you might not rebound, have a good couple seasons, but he's never going to be that same high as he was in 2019. And he's just, and to say all go down from here is a little depressing because he's still going to be good, right? But it's just not going to be as good as he was last season, the way I see it, man.
I have to say, Michael Thomas is entering how I feel about Julio. Not as old, but in the same stratosphere in terms of like, it's awesome to have Julio.
Yeah.
But some games he's going to blow up for 40, and some games he's like maybe 6 points.
Yeah.
And it's a very frustrating because you're like, it's Julio, it's Michael Thomas. They should be getting me 15, 18 points a game. It's like, I just don't,
right?
It's just like, I don't expect, you can't expect those things. And maybe we're going to come back and, in a year and be like, dude, what were we thinking?
Yeah,
that's just how I feel. It's just how I feel. Yeah. It's just how I feel. It's just how I feel right now.
Yeah. Dude, I'm with you, man. That's awesome. Well, guys, that's all for me. Those are players that are training up and training down. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Dynasty value is so subjective, right? It's so incredibly subjective, and it's so team reliant. So don't take what I'm saying here and take it to heart and go drop Michael Thomas. Right? If anything, if you really do believe that he's going to rebound and that either Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston's going to go and start feeding him next season, then maybe he's a buy low candidate for you. I don't know, but regardless, he's not someone I'm super excited for moving forward. Noah, this was awesome, man. I love doing Dynasty Trend Tuesday with you. It's something I look forward to. So thanks.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great way to kick off the week, and it's a lot of fun to see where your mind's at.
Yeah.
Versus where my mind is at, because I love the polar differences that we end up having. So no, I think it was a lot of fun. I think they're going to keep getting better and better. That's my favorite thing about doing these things. The rapport just gets better and better. So thanks for having me on.
I feel like our episode 1 killed it. This is episode 2. We're just going to continue every week. I think if you're still around, we continue to kill it. And guys, if you're watching this now,
what else do I got to do?
Exactly, man. Go trade Pittman for Denzel Mims right now if you're watching this video. Mark my words, Denzel Mims over Michael Pittman Jr. No, I'm teasing. Don't do that. I love them both, but we don't need to talk about that right now. All right, no. You just look so disappointed. You're like, this bastard.
This is just Josh's way of sending me a trade offer at the end of the season, Denzel Mims for Michael Pittman, and because he was trying to get him for, a solid 10 days.
I was losing sleep over who I could send for Michael Pittman, and it's just not gonna work out. And it makes me sad because he had a beautiful run. It was just a short little slant pass. Took it to the end zone this past game against Green Bay, and it looked so good. He's got some burst to him.
He's a monster in the open field, man.
Yeah, he is. Oh man. Anyways, guys, that's all from us. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Got the mic at 50. Just wait to see what we get when we hit 100 subscribers. Let's go, man. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.